So I am in a reading slump, like a really, really big one. I only read two books in April, and my reading numbers for January, February, and March were also fairly low for me. But more importantly, my enjoyment of the books that I actually am managing to finish has been subpar at best. So I've been finding myself asking myself whether this reading slump is just a usual reading slump, or if at this point it might be pointing towards starting this YouTube channel and essentially selling out my one remaining hobby to the algorithm or to future financial incentives, etc., might be related to this reading slump. So before I get into that existential crisis question, I just wanted to sort of set the stage here with what this video is and what it definitely is not. So this is certainly not an advice video. I don't even have myself and my thoughts together enough to figure out what I'm doing. So I'm certainly in no place to be giving advice to anybody else who's facing a similar conundrum. It is also not an announcement that I'm leaving YouTube. You'll see as we go along here, but I don't even have my thoughts straight enough to decide on that one way or another. It is also not scripted or planned. I did not think I'd be setting up my camera today and filming this video, or any video for that matter. I mean, I'm literally sitting here with partially wet hair in my largest sweatshirt in my bedroom and just talking. I do have some notes in front of me on things I want to make sure I don't miss, and the back half of this video will be more scripted. I'll talk about that in a second here, but I typically don't share sort of in progress thoughts on the internet. I tend to like to kind of have my own opinions and thoughts on a topic in order before I open myself up to like public critique on those things. And this time, that's not the situation I'm in. I don't have my thoughts straight. Getting into what this video is then, if it's not advice, if it's not a YouTube departure announcement, if it's not a scripted video, what is it? This is instead a chance for me to basically just think out loud. I am trying to speak my mind, parse through my thoughts as I go through this video, and then see if I can find some solidarity on the internet as well. It will also serve as a review of those two books that I did read in April, as well as a quick list of the books I plan to read in May if I can get myself at least a bit out of this reading slump. So that stuff will come towards the end of this video. It will be time-stamped so that you can skip straight there if you are less here for the existential crisis and more here for my usual book review content. So with those caveats out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into the more millennial existential crisis part of this video. Like I said at the beginning, have been in a bit of a reading slump since like January. It looked a little bit different in like January and February, where it was mostly like I was still reading quite a bit. Not as much as maybe I normally have historically, but still a decent amount. The difference here really was that I could feel my enjoyment of what I was reading waning. And some of that is due to just what I was reading, right? I mean, I'm not going to enjoy every single book that I read, nor do I expect to, but I could even feel the books that, you know how sometimes you just know that you should be connecting with a book more than you actually are, and you can't even actually put your finger on why you're not? To me, that's a sign that something's going awry, like with me, because there were plenty of books I read this year in 2026 since January that should have been 5-star reads for me. I love the author. I love their writing style. I love the premise of the book. I even love the plot, the execution, the character development. Everything was like incredible in the actual book itself. I just was not connecting. And that was a kind of the first red flag for me that something was feeling off. Two pieces of context that I think are kind of important to consider. Number one, I started this YouTube channel in the last few weeks of December of 2025. So this sort of like feeling of something being off started basically right after I started this YouTube channel. Another piece of context that, may or may not be helpful is that in 2025, I read over 150 books. And I didn't do that because I felt like I should. I didn't do that out of obligation. I wasn't creating content online. I didn't do it so I could brag to people in my life about it. I did it because it happened naturally, with reading being so important to me. It is my form of escape. It's my form of connection. It's so important to me. It's hard for me to even put into words. And if you're a reader as well, you may understand, although I'm sure some of you watching this are not readers, so I won't get into that too much. But my point is just that historically, for the past many years, I've read like upwards of 100 books, no problem. Sometimes almost 200 books, no problem, without even a second thought. It's just my natural reading cadence. And, there would be reading slumps throughout there, especially if it's like, I'm busy. They've just felt really different. And they're usually only a week or two at a time. It's not usually months and months, as is kind of happening to me now. So with those two pieces of context, the fact that historically I've read 100, 150, almost 200 books a year for many years of my life, combined with the fact that this feeling and these low reading numbers and this disconnect from what I'm reading really picked up extremely shortly after I started this YouTube channel. It's something I've noticed that is more than purely coincidental. We'll just say that. I don't know if there's a direct tie. I don't know if it's other circumstances in my personal life, which I'm not going to share here, that are contributing to the lower reading numbers. But I do think that the emotional disconnect piece here is my biggest concern. Reading is just so critical to me in my life, and I don't care if I read one book a year. I want to fully experience reading that book, and I don't want it to feel like I'm disconnected even from the process of doing that, which is how it's feeling right now. What I'm trying to say is that it feels like a piece of me is now missing, and I am thinking, I have a hunch, that my decision to basically, for lack of a better word, monetize something that I hold so dear to myself is the cause of that disconnect. And I also think it bears mentioning that this is not the first time that this has happened to me. Maybe not these exact circumstances, but I often get in this cycle in my life of falling really in love with something, and then I really go hard at it in some way or another, and often in a way that's related to trying to make money in some fashion. And then my passion for that thing wanes as I continue down that path. So I feel like throughout my life, I've constantly been trying to find the balance between wanting to make money in an enjoyable way, but then as soon as I turn an enjoyable thing into a way to make money with it, my enjoyment of that thing goes down as I attempt to monetize it. I'm sure this is a common experience. I can't imagine I'm the only person in this boat. And I also think it's largely generational. I don't think entirely, but I do think, at least in my experience, a lot of us millennials face this kind of conundrum. And I don't know if there is a good solution. Like maybe I just need to let go of the pipe dream that my form of making an income is going to be something I also inherently enjoy outside of making an income. Like maybe that those entire concepts, like maybe that's just an incompatible worldview. Maybe that's just delusional. I don't know, but I feel like there are people doing it, right? And so I feel like there are models of success for this, and I just can't seem to crack the code. And maybe it would be better for me to just let them be separate and stop striving for something that maybe isn't a good fit for me. So maybe I just need a way to make money plus things I enjoy aside from making money. And I may just never find a way for those two things to overlap. And I think potentially the work I need to do here is to figure out, like, okay, then where does that leave me? As someone who genuinely would love to be self-employed someday, not that the work I'm doing is terrible. I enjoy it. I like the people I work with. I like the kind of work I do as my current income. but I just have this deep pull to be self-employed, and I can't really explain it any better than that. So please don't ask me to try. That's a whole nother existential crisis video on a slightly tangential different topic. Point is, I have that drive, and so does it just mean that my self-employment might look different than I would hope? And rather than being focused or formed around something so enjoyable to me that is more so right now hobby and just life, maybe I need to come to terms with the fact that self-employment would need to focus more so on utilizing my current professional skill sets rather than my more personal skill sets, for lack of better words. Why do I not even have the language to talk about this? Maybe that's part of the problem. I just can't even seem to articulate a lot of what's in my mind. I don't have the right language for it. So thank you if you've made it this far and you're bearing with me stumbling through my thoughts on this. And you know what? If I'm being honest, I think at this point, if I keep talking, I'm just going to be going around in circles with this. So rather than do that, I think let me just move on to the slightly more structured part of this video. I'm going to leave it here. I'm open to thoughts in the comments on this one. I don't even really know where to go from here, if I'm honest. So the more structured part of this is a review quickly of the 2 books that I did manage to read in April, and just a quick listing of the ones I'm hoping to read in May. So the first book that I read in April was Kantika by Elizabeth Graver. I ended up rating this 4 stars. So again, my ratings aren't necessarily suffering. I'm trying to be realistic about the fact that I am still finding value in these. So this book is a multi-generational saga following a Sephardic Jewish family from Istanbul to Barcelona and from Havana to New York. It explores displacement, identity, femininity. We primarily follow Rebecca Cohen as she grows up as part of a family forced to start anew multiple times due to multiple tragic circumstances at every level. So political, financial, religious, communal, familial, marital, kind of just all the odds stacked against these folks. And we see Rebecca endure and at times even thrive despite her guilt in doing so. This was beautifully written. I chose this book actually as part of my spring reading list because it won my sort of best first sentence wins competition I did within my physical TBR. So I'll link that if you're curious. But I picked this book because the first sentence blew me away and the rest of the writing throughout the book followed suit. It's very lyrical without being too flowery to the point where it kind of obscures the plot or the character development. So for me, it was the perfect balance. It was gorgeously written. I especially love the commentary throughout this book on the importance of language and how it shapes our worldviews, our relationships, and the options that are available to us in our lives. So a great book. I would highly recommend it, especially if you love historical fiction. Really beautifully written. It definitely, though, suffered from my lack of attention. And then the second book that I read in April was The Astral Library by Kate Quinn. I ended up landing at 3 stars for this one. Alex Watson has learned one lesson from her barren childhood in the foster care system. Books will never let you down. Unlike people. Working 3 dead-end jobs and barely making ends meet, Alex takes nightly refuge in the reading room at the Boston Public Library. One day, as she steps through the usual entrance, she actually finds that she stepped through to an alternate plane managed by an ageless librarian who protects the Astral Library, a place where the hopeless go to live out their lives in the books they love. With the Astral Library under attack, the librarian brings Alex under her wing to help them save something sacred. Basically, just a fun little fantasy. I really enjoyed this book in the sense that it was fun, it was lighthearted, it was easy, and the audiobook narration was super engaging. I absolutely loved the narration for this one. I will say my biggest drawback with this was that it was a bit simple in terms of theming and a bit heavy-handed with the messaging. I found myself wishing for some more subtlety, a little bit more trust in the reader's ability to interpret context and subplots and connect the dots themselves. So that was my biggest complaint. Otherwise, it was an enjoyable read. It was nothing groundbreaking for me, but I did like it. Okie dokie. And then on to the books that I'm hoping I can read in May. And it's 7 books. So we've got Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab, Circe by Madeline Miller, Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid, The Poet Empress by Shen Tao, The Sea of Monsters by Rick Riordan, Beloved by Toni Morrison, and How to Talk So Little Kids Will Listen by Joanna Faber and Julie King. So 2 of these books I've actually already finished, and unfortunately they were both letdowns for me in different ways. I'll do a May reading recap to share my thoughts on that. And I'm also halfway through 3 of the others. If you don't already know, I tend to do 1 audiobook, 1 ebook, and 1 physical book at a time. It's just how I like to read. Got lots of content on my channel about that, but it means that I'm in the middle of 3 books right now also from this list. So of the 7 books, 5 of them are either already read or I'm in the progress of reading them or in the process of reading them. And I am definitely really still feeling this slump. My usual tactics of reading shorter books or reading YA and middle grade books is not cutting it this month, which is a bummer for me because I kind of intentionally stacked my May reading list with books that I'm like really looking forward to and feel really excited about, or shorter books, YA books, middle grade books, trying to just kind of use my usual tactics to get out of this reading slump and reconnect with reading. And unfortunately, so far, it's not working. So I feel pretty bummed out about that, but I'm hoping that I can end May on a high note. We will see. I'll come back. I'll come back and share thoughts at the end of the month. So thank you so much for listening to this more rambling video, and thanks for being here. I really appreciate it, and I will see you next time.